Shalom and welcome to Cheryl's Pearls of Wisdom. I'm going to give you a 5-minute take with Yeshua for your daily walk. We're going to be talking about Peter, repeating Peter's, because I feel like, and I preached on this sermon a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I think most of us can associate with Peter more than other disciples because Peter was not like highly intelligent. He constantly got into arguments because he was a fighter. He was a hardworking man that provided for his family. And quite often, he didn't do it Christ way. Even though he would be walking with Christ, with Jesus, he would walk with him. There was times where he just didn't, he thought to fight with his hands was better than to do it the way Jesus was showing him. Jesus was teaching him. But what I love when Jesus first encounters Peter, it's not on the fishing boat at that moment. It's brother Andrew brings him to Jesus and says, "This is Jesus. This is the man I've been talking about," because Andrew was a follower before Peter was. And the first thing Jesus does is he looks at him and he says, "You are Simon, the son of John, and you shall be called Caiaphas," which is translated to Peter. So right away, Jesus is already changing Peter's name like he did Jacob and Abram to Abraham, because when you encounter Jesus, you encounter change. And I believe that was something important that he established early on, that Peter was going to have one of the greater transformations in all of his disciples. And rightfully so, because Peter was the one that actually denied the night that they took Christ to be crucified. He denied 3 times, but yet he said he wouldn't at the Last Supper, and he did. And Christ already knew this. But Peter would go on to be one of the greater transformation stories in the disciples, because even though he was fearful for his life when Jesus was taken, and he denied that out of being afraid, he became so much bolder after Jesus was resurrected and ascended to heaven. He went on after the upper room. Peter went on to convert 3,000 Jewish men and women, which is huge. But talked about, remember when Peter was out on the boat and they saw Jesus walking on the water, all the disciples saw something. They thought it was a ghost. And then Peter, once he realized, "Lord, is that you?" And the Lord Jesus said, "Yes. And if you come to me." Well, Peter stepped out of the boat. None of the other disciples stepped out of the boat, but Peter had enough faith at that point to step out of the boat and walk towards him, just not enough faith to sustain him above the water. And of course, Jesus already knew that. He was there to grab him. But it starts by first taking the right step towards getting to know Yeshua, understanding his characteristics and his love for us, and how he's always restoring or repurposing something that was meant to harm us in some way. He's rebuilding and shaping us. I call it shifting, and placing us exactly where we need to be. Sometimes we don't always see that. But I love that Jesus saw him as Peter, not Simon, from the word go. We have to remember how he sees us. He sees us because remember, he says, "I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb." That means he knew us and knows us better than we know ourselves. And then he placed us in our mother's womb. And okay, now we got to walk out and rediscover who he is when we come to earth and take our breath, which is his ruach, which is his spirit within us. I would love for you to go and research Peter's, because we all get angry. We all want to sometimes take care of things our way and not the way Jesus would have us do it. And if we could pick up Jesus's yoke when we're angry, and meaning like get into the word, get into worship, it will change, it will transform our mindset. We take our thoughts captive and we replace it with the mind of Christ. And what would he do? And I love that saying years ago, what would Jesus do? Okay. So when you're really angry and you really want to go punch something or someone or get angry and take things into your own hands, ask, would Jesus do this? How would he handle it? Now, there is righteous anger, but you can constructively show how to use that righteous anger in the right way for his kingdom and not so much attack one another. We all seem to repeat things expecting different outcomes sometimes, and it doesn't work out for us that way. That's why I call us repeating Peters. There's more Peters in this world, I believe, than there are Matthews or Jameses and whatnot. I mean, some people have wisdom and some people don't have wisdom because it just doesn't grow in their garden, I guess. But know that God did a great transformation with Peter, and he does wonderful restoring in your life if you just give him access to those places where you're really angry or frustrated with life. Get to the altar of the cross, or the foot of the cross that is, and just pray over it and let God work those things through you for his kingdom. Like, let you become the vessel for him. Remember, the greatest thing is to say, less of me, Lord, and more of you. To know that we have unlimited access to his love and his grace, and he just loves us so much. So if you are a Peter, I would say sometimes I'm even a Peter, because I'm quick to shoot before I think. And I've learned to taste my words as I've gotten older to understand, is it worth my peace to speak something? And did God even call me to that battle? But with having said that, study a little bit more about Peter, because he disappointed, he was the one disciple that God was constantly talking to, and rebuking sometimes. Even Jesus rebuked Peter. So, but I go back through and revisit that story, because later on we know that he goes out in the boat with Peter, and then Peter says, I've been fishing all day. And he says, go out a little bit further, after he preached on the sermon that is that Jesus did. But he first started with coming to meet him with Andrew, his brother. And the very first thing when Peter encountered Jesus was Jesus addressed him as Peter, not Simon. So with that being said, let God do the greatest changes in your life. Until the next time, shalom.